Welcome to Driven Ops Power Talk. I'm Jasmine Moore.
And I'm Rebecca Heisey. We're two work besties who have spent over a decade learning the ins and outs of sales and marketing.
On this podcast, we discuss all things go-to-market operations, the people, processes, and technologies that make up the engine of a thriving go-to-market function. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Power Talk. Today, we're talking about what it takes to navigate a large organizational change. Whether you are going through a rebrand, implementing new technology, or changing critical go-to-market processes, this episode is for the marketer or the sales operations leader that is in the thick of it and really needs a pep talk. So there's good news. Change management does not need to mean you're having a meltdown. I know that there may be spreadsheets, timelines, due dates, like leadership that needs updates that you don't have. But when you approach change with structure, transparency, and a clear vision, it can actually be smooth. So we're going to get into it today.
Yeah, it's a pretty hot topic. I think it'll be a good one.
Yeah. So why is change hard? Like why the resistance?
Well, like they say, right? Like people just don't like change. You get comfortable with what you're doing, you know how to do it. And then the minute someone says, now we're going to switch it up, you're like, oh, great. Yeah. Now I have to learn things. And I already know what I know.
I know. And it's like when you announce something that is coming, it invokes uncertainty and chaos. Yeah. Like people just immediately ask questions. Why? Why now? Yeah. Why are we doing this? Like, how is this going to affect my work, my day-to-day? I don't have time. All of these questions. And to your point, resistance. People don't want to learn new processes, new tech. It's like one of the hardest thing as a leader in corporate America or a leader in any organization to roll out a big change.
Yeah. And we've been at companies where we've had rebrands and, expansions and different things like that. And it takes the whole org to really get it to where it needs to be. But the other problem is just like knowing who to talk to and getting those people aligned. And it can feel like 10,000 pounds is landing on you because you don't know where to start all the time.
And the alignment is key because a lot of the times change goes awry when there's no shared vision and plan. Yeah. So then you get misaligned efforts where you're wasting resources and everyone's working on something, but not everyone is working on something together. And so I think that's where the chaos happens. And so let's talk about how to handle it, how to handle this major project at your organization.
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is 100% always get a dedicated project manager. And this is really important because you really actually need somebody who knows how to really project manage, like has their certification, like actually understands how to go to each team, how to also gather the reasons behind what is driving this whole project, because that person is kind of like your spokesperson for the whole thing. They're the ones that are going to be talking to everybody, where like top leadership, who's really the one pushing it, isn't always the one that's actually speaking to everybody and really like figuring out what needs to be done, how long it's going to take. So having somebody who is the dedicated person who can just like have that oversight, make sure that they're keeping on time with the roadmaps, making sure that they're setting up meetings, they're getting other people in the room that need to be there. That is so important. I've had projects where it's been done both ways, and I can tell you every time there's not a real project manager who really knows how to do it the right way, it's much more stressful because there's more confusion, and it's just not as fun.
I agree. And I think the problem is some people underestimate the magnitude of managing this project because you have people doing the work, but you need someone that's orchestrating the work and making sure it's getting done. Because whether you're rebranding, whether you're implementing a new technology, this is a lot of work that's going to be put on top of someone. So someone has a full-time job and they have things to do. You can't just put this project on them and be like, make sure this project is successful. So yes, a project manager is key.
Yeah. And everybody only knows their area. So like this person is also really helpful in being able to say, oh, so-and-so called this out, like that might impact this other person. And so that is like the biggest thing, because you're mainly focusing on like, oh, okay, I know what tools will impact my team, or, what processes will impact my team, but then what change from my team where I'm raising, like, hey, I might need to update certain fields in Salesforce, or I might need to do this, but how does that actually impact other teams downstream? Like, that's a lot of things that can go wrong really quickly.
And what's key here is communicate, which typically is driven by that project manager. So any project has a weekly progress sync with the core players, the people who are doing the work. But there are layers of communication that is needed, because you have the core players, you have the stakeholders that are an extended team and they really just need to know what's going on. And then you also have the extended stakeholders, leadership, that, they've bought into this project and they need to know if you're hitting the milestones. And so the clear communication and transparent strategy is important. And so we're talking about the weekly syncs, but it's also important to set up a broader broadcast communication. And that could be a weekly email out to the extended team by the project manager to let them know, like, hey, this is the milestone we're working on. Here's the progress. Here are any high level roadblocks, but we're pushing forward.
Yeah. And it sometimes feels like a lot, because you're like, oh my gosh, we're in so many meetings, but this is key, because you do have to over communicate, because you just don't want to miss one person who is like, honestly could completely like make or break a whole piece of the project. And if they're like, oh, I was never in the loop, that's the worst thing. So you have to send those emails, you have to have those weekly syncs. And sometimes you might have like weekly syncs that are with smaller groups that are maybe like really like tactical type of teams, and then you have to have those like big broader groups that has like everybody, where you're just like going through all the things, basically the entire roadmap. So it is a lot, but that is part of a massive change like management project that's being executed.
You can't over communicate, and that transparency builds trust and buys people in along the process. And you want people to want this project to succeed, because that's another thing. A lot of the times when you launch something, you will have the naysayers that are sitting back and they're like, I'm just waiting for this to fail. I'm just going to identify the bottlenecks. So if you're the project manager, you're leading this project, be on point, over communicate.
Exactly. And another really great way to help organize this and make sure things are streamlined is just having a centralized information hub. So like spreadsheets are great, and a lot of times that is where a lot of the just like the key areas are highlighted, like different teams, different tools within those teams that are like all impacted by this change. But then I really think that you kind of have to go the next step, because those spreadsheets are fine, but they can get very messy and very like crazy. So you really need like a project management tool, like Asana, like Monday.com, whatever tool you use. ClickUp, exactly. Like whatever one like is for your team. But that's like just nice, because then you can have your specific channels where you have like those, again, key target dates that are needed for those key players that have to execute. You can put those deadlines, and it doesn't get as messy and missed. But those spreadsheets can get so complex, and you're like clicking on comments and you're like, I can't even find the comment because it's just buried in here somewhere. So you definitely have to have organization within your like the way that you're actually mapping out the information.
One of my icks is managing a whole project in a spreadsheet. I hate that. I mean, you don't have to get tool crazy, but to your point, a dedicated project management system to where you can see where the tasks in the projects, and not only you, people who aren't in those weekly calls, they have visibility, and this goes into that transparency and trust to go in and see things moving. They could get tagged into a project. Maybe their input is needed, and so now you're being efficient. You're working asynchronously, and you're just tagging them in the project, and they're expecting that. And on top of that, back to it being centralized, I like to have like a knowledge base or a centralized place where someone can see a project overview, the key project players, and like why we're doing this, and then link out to that project management system.
Definitely. That's huge for sure. Like, because that's the other thing is that you are going to be documenting so much, right? Because basically, like in some sense, you might have to document what's current state, and then you have to kind of document that change that is switching over and what those key things are. And so again, like leadership, other teams might need to read that. Like, again, depending on what you're changing, like if you're doing a rebrand, that's huge, right? Like, and even if you're not completely rebranding, sometimes you're just like adding a slogan and, that's a lot of like art, like creativity that needs to be done. And then you're changing campaigns, you're changing assets, you're changing. Yeah, there's so much that goes into even just like a color change. Like
you'd be surprised, like the downstream assets that are affected. And your future self will thank you if you document it. And so the next, like say you're doing a product launch, there's so many things. I remember my first product launch, I had no idea what was ahead of me because there was just so many things. You have your website, you have your email, you have like everything is connected. Anything that mentions a product that maybe this product is replacing. There's so many related assets and you learn. Like all these projects are about learning. So document, keep the relevant documents together. So on your next project, on your next product launch, you can go back and see, okay, what did I learn? What did I do? So you're ready for it and you're always improving.
Exactly. And this is like, so you can use this for even smaller projects, but like anybody's company goes through something like this, whether like, again, like you said, like whether it's product launches, whether it's rebrands, whether you're expanding into new markets, like all of this is like new stuff that has to be done. And a lot of times that definitely impacts so much of your org.
So I know we're getting really tactical, but I want to make sure that we mention up at the top, define your clear vision and goals and objective of the project. Because like I said, you need the buy-in. You need to get people into one room, one virtual room, and talk through. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is what we expect to happen after this project. And that opens up the space for questions, for commentary, dialogue between key stakeholders, and just do not leave that room until everyone's on the same page and everyone understands that this is happening. And there's a good reason for it.
And I think that that's like a great time, like to your point, to explain the reasoning behind why you're doing this, but then also to try to set like just the clear expectations of how long, like when it's supposed to be executed and is that accomplishable, you know, because I mean, granted, again, you might not be able to, you might try to set a date. And then once you actually talk to your team downstream, you're like, oh, we might need to push this back a little bit, which is fine. But you do have to be a little flexible. You want it to be done right the first time also. So, but yeah, exactly. Like, I think that's the biggest thing too, is that if people don't feel bought into the change, that's where more resistance comes in. Like if they're not feeling like, yes, I'm a part of this goal, I'm going to be able to help with this, I'm going to be able to like make this impact. That's when people get even more nervous because they're just like, oh my gosh, this is completely changing my day to day. But if they actually feel like a sense of pride in their motion of this, new project and like pushing it out, I think it at least gives them a little bit more of like drive to be like, yes, let's do it and let's make it get done the right way.
And don't rush it. It takes time. And so we need clarity. We need a strategy, a plan. So you're going to have to think about enablement and training. You can't just implement in a tool and just expect people to start using it. It's going to hinder their productivity, their day-to-day. It's not going to be business as usual. So plan for that.
You definitely have to have, I would say, like pre-launch meetings as well. And like, even if you're not the project manager, you might have to be the one who kind of spearheads certain meetings as well. So like if you're in charge of a sales team, you might have to go to them and say, here's what we're planning to change in the process for this project. Like those sales reps are not a part of your for this launch, right? It's all mostly like the operational people on the back end. But like if you are telling them here's what's going to change, they might raise flags that you didn't even think about. And you're like, holy cow, I have to actually go back to the drawing board because I didn't account for like this one thing, right? So, and that could be like a really bad miss. So you might want to do like those pre-meeting launches, explain to them what's changing, walk them through all of these different things. Like you said, enablement and training, like that's huge. And then again, like all that documentation, especially with all the AI now, if you're pre-documenting a lot of that stuff, you could probably just throw it into AI and be like, help me create some training and some talk-throughs.
You absolutely can.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like, but it's super important that, again, you over communicate this stuff and get those teams involved, because I've been there too, where we've launched things and you're bound to miss stuff. Like you can't think of everything as much as you try, and as many months as you're working on these projects. Like it's almost inevitable that something might get missed and not go as smoothly as you want.
And people are forgiving when you communicate and when you're transparent.
Right.
If you come in like, hey, I want to talk to you guys. I want to communicate the good and the bad, and I'm going to be consistent. Then when something happens and you're communicating it, they're like, that's okay, that happens.
Yeah.
But communicate it in a way that's like, here's what happened. Here's how we're going to not have that happen again. And then there's nothing anyone can say. We're human.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But I like your point in saying you can't do this alone. So here's a hot tip for project managers. Find your power users and your champions. Because a lot of sales users, if you're implementing a new sales tech tool, they're going to be resistant and they have their own way of doing things. But there usually is someone that's like, you know, they're down for the cause. They are really good in the CRM. They're techie. They're good. Like, latch onto that person and use them because they will be your champion.
Yeah, 100%.
And now it's time for coffee talk.
Coffee talk.
All right, what's our coffee talk today?
All right, so today we're going to talk about workplace dilemma debates.
Okay.
So like, okay, I'll give you a couple examples. Like a workplace dilemma. Here's one. Is it ever okay to microwave fish in the office? I mean, think about that. Like that's a dilemma. Like here you have this amazing dish. Maybe you had it for dinner the night before and you're like, oh, I can't wait to eat my leftovers. Yeah. But like,
no, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And I learned that out the hard way. Like, you know, fresh out of college, you know, got my meal prep, took it to work. And then I quickly found out that, no, that is not good. That's foul and offensive.
Yeah.
Leave your salmon at home.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just like, it's never great to re-microwave fish. I don't think it doesn't work even in your own house. But at least if you're in the privacy of your own home and you want to smell that, that's on you. But like,
but even the little tuna packets, do you ever eat those like tuna packets that you could just like open and put in your salad? I love those.
But do you heat those?
No, you don't heat those, but they're tuna. And
they
like
have a smell?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh. I mean, I've had tuna like in a can, but not like in a
similar.
But I don't feel like it smells.
They do.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
They're not workplace
Oh,
friendly.
well, yeah, like I guess it does kind of have a smell. Yeah. But I guess it's not. I guess I'm thinking of like the smell of like the microwaved ones. Like that is like strong and then the microwave just like blows it all around the room. I feel like.
Now the microwave smells like fish.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
everyone's food. It's
just not good.
Yeah. I guess I've never done that, but I did.
Yeah.
I was bringing the tuna packets.
Yeah, or like if you boil eggs or something and then you like bring them, like the eggs will smell. Like I feel like if you've ever like had a hard boiled egg, but then it's like you have it in the fridge or something, it still smells.
Yeah, even broccoli.
Yeah,
has a smell.
Yeah,
and that's a shame.
I know.
That's really a shame. What's another debate?
Okay, so is it ever acceptable to conduct an entire phone call on speaker in a shared office space?
No.
I know. Like, but like think about that. Let's not even say it's like a cell phone call, but like even think about when you're like in an office space and maybe like a higher up person has an office, but they leave their door open and it's on speaker. And the whole office can hear the conversation. And you're just like, are we even supposed to be hearing this right now? Like,
but in that case, sometimes you want to hear.
I know you're kind of like that. We got the tea, but like,
what are they talking about?
But at the same time, it's like you kind of can't concentrate on your own work because you're just like listening to the conversation.
Well, right out of college, I went into sales and it was like inside sales and it was kind of like SDR / account management. I don't even think SDR was a term then, but like it was an open workspace. So we're basically at our desks and then like 2 feet over there's someone else and they're calling and
you all can hear each other like over the phone.
I hated it. I had like phone anxiety and it's just something you have to get over. But like you're all like on the call on this open floor. I don't like that.
Yeah. No, same. I'm the same. I mean, I'm remote and like it's like my favorite thing ever. Like I just have a personality of just I need to work from home because I am so distracted by noises. Like and maybe it's just my own like auditory like thing or something, but like I can just hear everything and it distracts me so bad. Where some people could like I mean, I worked with people who were like, oh, I have to go to like a coffee shop and work because they just like that noise and it actually makes them concentrate more. And I'm like the total opposite. So I feel like if I'm hearing other people on calls, I would be totally distracted.
Yeah. See, it doesn't bother me. Like, I typically will sometimes, most of the time, I try to listen to something unless I'm like, I have to focus on what I'm doing. Yeah. Like, I like to listen to podcasts, or sometimes I'll play like The Office in the background and watch it. And I like that white noise.
I don't. It's so crazy. I mean, I like if I'm working on something where it's like very tactical, like I'm just like working in a spreadsheet and I don't have to like type, like write anything out, then I'll play music or I'll listen to a podcast or something like that too. But for the most part, I feel like I don't do as much of that anymore. I do a lot more writing and I do a lot more of like where I have to think because I'm responding to people. So I have it totally silent.
All right. Well, Becca's working in silence and I'm working with the housewives.
So yeah, actually another one was like, what about people who sing or play music in the office? Like I actually used to have somebody in the office who would just start singing songs and everybody was like, this is too much.
I've never experienced that, but I don't know how I would feel about it. I might like it like the first time. I might be like, oh, that's different.
Yeah.
Then the second or third time, be like, okay, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, even playing music would be hard because like not everyone has the same music taste. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but some people might like, you never know. Somebody
that's a thing like in common, not even at work. Some people like walk down the street playing music,
or like at the gym they like put it on speaker on the phone and you're just like, where's your headphones?
Like, that's a common thing at the
gym. So it's kind of like I don't want to hear your music, I want to hear my own.
Right. So let us know what you think. What side of the debates are you on? Are you working in silence or are you working with the housewives? I want to know.
Let us know.
So that wraps up this episode on change management. I hope you learned something. Keep pushing forward. We feel for all those project managers out there.
Yes, definitely.
See you next time.
Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on all social media platforms.
Keep up with us and all of our hot takes on all things go-to-market operations. See you next time.